Did you know that more people than ever before are living paycheck to paycheck? With some sites saying that up to 50% of Americans would not be okay if their next paycheck was even slightly delayed. Hey guys, my name is Chase, and this is my journey to becoming financially free and never having to worry about money again. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what I did to cut my spending by 50% in just 1 month. The first step towards financial freedom is always going to be looking at your spending. It doesn't matter if you're earning $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year, $1 million a year. If you're spending what you're taking in, you're never going to be financially free. And the best thing about looking at your spending is it's completely dependent on you. You don't have to ask your boss for a raise. You don't have to find a new job. You don't have to start a side hustle. All you have to do is you have to look at what you're spending, and you need to find ways to cut back and spend a little bit less. And I'll be the first to admit, it's not easy, especially in today's world where it's buy now, pay later. So here are 3 things that I did to cut my spending by 50% in just 1 month. And that first thing was defining a very clear why. Why am I spending less? Because when you're faced with that impulse buy, or in my wife's case, that sweet treat, or when your friends ask you to go do something that requires money, or when there's something in the store that you see that you want, you have to be able to define why you're not doing it. Because if you have a clear guiding compass, whenever you're faced with those decisions, it's easy to say no when you've already defined why you're doing it. Another thing that I would recommend is changing your identity as a spender to a saver. In the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, phenomenal book, I highly recommend it. In this book, he talks about people who are trying to quit smoking. And there are 2 groups. Group A says things like, I'm trying to quit, or I'm trying to stop, or I'm trying to smoke less. And group B says things like, I'm not a smoker, or I'm not a person who smokes, or no thank you, I don't smoke. Group A still has the identity of a smoker. They're trying to stop, they're trying to change, while group B is not somebody who smokes. Whether or not they smoked last week, they're changing their identity to be somebody who doesn't smoke. I'm not a smoker. And that's something that my wife and I really reflected on, and we found a lot of help in that. We're not people who spend. And that identity shift from somebody who spends to somebody who saves makes saying no so much easier. After clearly defining your why, the next step is going to be look at your past spending. Because how can you change something if you have no idea what you were spending in the past? So I recommend looking at your past 3 months. That way you can get a clear picture, and 1 month doesn't throw it off with being super high on something or super low on something. You can get a consistent average on what you're spending throughout that month. And I ended up breaking my spending into a couple different categories, them being rent, food, like groceries, shops, car, insurance, loans, subscription, utilities, restaurants, entertainment, and other. After getting those categories, look at your past 3 months of spending and fit everything into one of those categories. So for example, rent is going to be pretty consistent. That's, $2,000 a month, whatever that is. That's a fixed cost, doesn't really change. You sign your lease, that's what it's going to be. Variable costs are going to be a little bit more important, like food, groceries. So let's say 3 months ago you spent $600 a month, then you spent $475, then you spent $515. After you've written down all 3 months, you're going to add those together to get an average for a total of $1,590 during those 3 months. Then we're going to divide that by 3 for an average of $530 across those 3 months. Now do that with all of the categories of spending. After that, a super simple way to cut back is just multiply everything by 0.8, 80%. So for example, 530 times 0.8 is 424. That will be my goal going into this month. 80% less, I'm saving 20% on that. Now you can only do these things with the things that are variable. So I can't do 80% less on my rent. They're not going to like that. They're not going to allow that. You can do that on things that are variable, such as food, shops, subscriptions, even entertainment. And once you have everything down by 80%, you're already saving 20% of what you were spending. Another thing that you can do is you can look at categories that you can just eliminate completely. For us, that was entertainment. We didn't really care about, going to see movies, going out to bars, doing things like that. We decided that we could do a lot of stuff at home, play board games, read books, watch movies here. There's plenty of stuff that we could do at home, and that was going to be a huge save for us. Another thing that we did is we looked at restaurants. We did not want to get rid of that completely. We love eating at restaurants. We love finding new food. We love finding new places, and that brought us a lot of joy. But we were willing to cut this down a little bit more than 80% because this was a huge spender for us. So this, I think, was around $600, and we ended up cutting this down to $100. So pretty drastic, but it still allows us to get a little bit of enjoyment from that activity and save a huge amount of money. Another thing that you can do is you can look at subscriptions. Are they really necessary? Can you share with somebody? Insurance, can you call around, maybe find new insurance plans? Can you compare? Can you find something a little bit cheaper? There's plenty of ways that you can save money. After looking back at your past spending, writing everything down, finding your averages, reducing them to 80%, and then cutting out stuff that you're willing to go without, the next step is just try it out. Spend that month following your budget. Track your spending every day, whether you're using an app or if you're doing it analog and writing everything down. Track everything every day and pay attention to it, because if you pay attention to something, it's going to change. It has to change. If you're constantly aware of something, there are going to be changes towards it. The third step is reassess. How did that month go? Was it easy? Was it hard? Were you finding that you were wanting a little bit more in a certain category, or you didn't need as much in another category because you were paying attention to it? Go a little bit down, go a little bit up. Try and stay where you're saving about 50% if you can, if you have the income, but just be saving, just be spending less. And remember, the number one step to becoming a saver is to change your identity. I am a person who saves money, not somebody who spends.